Welcome everybody, and I'd like to introduce Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, who's going to start off the evening.
Thank you. What a privilege and what an excellent time to have this evening. And I appreciate that next to me also is Andrea Pass, our COO of Eco-Judaism, who's absolutely fantastic and who drills down to all the important detail and keeps people on the journey of our working towards net zero. It's a perfect day and it's a difficult day. It's a perfect day because most of us are getting ready to hang stuff in our sukkah. Our pride and joy is always to grow kins. And the bigger they are, the more we try to hang them where somebody's going to sit underneath. And we've got a special thing this year. We're only going to hang in the sukkah things we've grown in the garden, if we manage it. So I think Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world and the celebration of creation, and Sukkah, which reminds us both of our dependence on nature, our vulnerability as individuals and as a species, and our thanksgiving to God for the gifts of this world, are key times in the Jewish year to think of our carbon footprint and where we're traveling to as individuals, as households, as synagogues, as communities, and as the world. The difficult thing is the report on the state of nature came out today and is profoundly worrying. And although people might think this is peripheral, where nature goes, we go. The history of Judaism is one of interrelated understanding between us and our environment. The rabbis and the world of the Hebrew Bible, the rabbis of the Mishnah and the Talmud were acutely aware of that relationship and our sense of dependency on it. So it's a very important date today. And I also appreciate people who gathered here. There's so many people. Benita, you spoke at our awards ceremony a year ago. It was fantastic. And many of the communities here have been so solidly and stalwart friends of ours. So I welcome and thank you. Thank you to you, Fiona. Thank you to the Board of Deputies who've been so many years our partner, fostering us until we became, about nearly a year ago, our own charity. So in a nutshell, the work of Eco-Judaism has as its cornerstone an audit, which communities are welcome to join. We are not denominational. We include from all the way through the progressive, through to the Orthodox and the Spanish and Portuguese communities as well, and take real pride in being inclusive, because after all, issues of climate affect every one of us. They're not, there's nothing denominational about that. And we also work closely, particularly with Eco Church, but also with Eco Sikh and Eco Mosque and people of other faiths and no faiths at all. The essence of the audit is to look at every aspect of our community life and our individual life. What about our utilities? Are we using renewables? What about waste through lack of insulation in our homes or our synagogues? What about food? And what do we do with extra food? What do we do with potentially waste food? That's going to be a big project of a very special book we hope coming out during COP28 as a celebration and a mark of Eco Shabbat, the first Shabbat in December. Remember the date. And then it also looks at what are we doing with our teaching opportunities, our preaching opportunities? What kind of messaging is going out from both the way we speak and the way we act? Many communities did as their very first thing to stop using single-use plastics. We found that New North London Synagogue, which is quite a large community, we were saving about 30,000 cups a year. And the thought that for so long we threw them away is actually a disgrace. It's disgraceful. So there are things we can change, and we will take you. We're partnering very closely with Limud this year, who's got a very strong climate track, and we're grateful for that partnership. But their strapline of wherever you are on your Jewish journey, we take you a step further. We would like to say, mimicking that, wherever you are on your environmental journey, we want to take you 1 or 2 or 3 steps further. And then also there's the question of, okay, there are things we need to change and things we need to really modify in our behavior. And Judaism is a religion of mitzvot. It understands it understands both the yes and the no of our behavior, but also what are we doing about biodiversity? We have many synagogues of grounds. Are there birds' nests? Are we feeding the birds? Is there water? 43% of birds in British Isles have been listed as in danger of extinction. So every aspect of our activity is in there, but that doesn't mean you have to start at the most difficult places. We encourage people to start where you are and develop onwards from there on a journey. And it's incentivized, and this does make a difference, we're all human, by a bronze, a silver, or a gold award. And the gold awards have to be renewed every couple of years. And we're not going to be lowering the standards. If anything, we're going to be up them over the coming period of time to encourage everybody, because this may be the most important issue that humanity faces, to be on this journey with us. We're very, very keen to include. I think those are my words by way of introduction. Is that okay, Fiona? Have I missed out major areas?
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Rabbi Wittenberg's now going to go back and carry on decorating his sukkah, and we're going to see him later on in the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to keep Andrea up here. I've been working closely with her on this event. I'm Fiona Frank from Lancaster and Lakes Jewish Community and current chair of the Board of Deputies Climate Action Group. In 2021, the Board of Deputies pledged to take action to cut carbon emissions and to play its part in achieving net zero by 2050. So we've partnered with Eco-Judaism to share some inspiring stories from communities around the UK who have been working on ways to cut their carbon footprint, in the hope that as many people as possible will join us and start to think what you can do in your families and in your communities towards achieving net zero yourselves. We're recording this session so that we can include the presentations on the Eco-Judaism website and inspire even more people. It's great that so many people have registered to come tonight. And as you know, there's another event like this in October with 4 more projects when we want to double the attendance and spread the word even further. We'll send out the registration link to the October event to everyone who's here straight after the meeting. So tonight, we're going to hear from 5 communities who are doing some very interesting things. They're going to share their triumphs and their setbacks, and hopefully it'll get you all thinking. There are 2 opportunities for you to share your thoughts with others. So it's not just watching us and that's it. There'll be a mini breakout room after the second presentation where you'll get to meet 2 other participants and hear where they're from and what's brought them here tonight, and you'll get to introduce yourself. I've been lucky enough to have long conversations with all of the presenters, and I can guarantee you that they're all doing lots of fantastic things in their communities. I've asked them all to stick to 1 or 2 key points today though, but there'll be a longer breakout room discussion session after we've heard from all of the presenters, when you'll get a chance to spend more time with one of those presenters and talk about your own commitments. And all of the presenters tonight are happy to share their contact details and hear from you with any follow-up questions after this meeting. So I'm going to introduce the first speaker now. As I said, I asked them all to keep their presentations short, so I shouldn't go on myself. Our first presenter is Kathy Schock from Oxford Hebrew Congregation. Over to Kathy, thank you.
Oxford Jewish Congregation.
Jewish Congregation, sorry.
Good evening, everybody. So we are really proud, and I was going to say surprised to say that we have silver EcoSynagogue status. And it's surprised because we've got no land beside a very small paved courtyard. And we were pleased to find there were so many ways that we could still be active on the ground. We found that the audit has been a brilliant way to inspire us, give us ideas of things to do. But we are a unique community in that all strands of Judaism are gathered together as one community, but with different congregations who overlap, and then we share everything. We've got one council, one cheder, and all social activities are joint. We adhere to strictly kosher terms within the building. And of course, recently we've had to abide by COVID rules that's hampered our Kiddushim options for being strictly green and kosher. But we have a small eco team, and we meet monthly to work out plans for improvement and encouragement, and a large eco group who respond when they can, as well as a supportive council, management, and the educational team. And our pre-Cheder group leader in particular is full of great ideas for the youngest members in their green journey. So I've just come up with 2 ideas to share with you. We do many other things too, but they seem to have worked, and they hope they're useful for you. So number 1 is the eco meter, and I think that Fiona's going to show you a not very good photo of our eco meter. And I don't know if you can show the other photo as well. There were 2, that's right, because it had a silver plate at the top. And the idea was we wanted to encourage other members of the community to tell us what they were doing at home, so that kind of ticked the box about encouraging members to do their own thing. So the thermometer was had the silver ball at the top, and we asked people to put sticky labels explaining what they personally were doing in their families all the way up the meter. so that we could get to the top and prove that the members of the community were actually very involved. And I'll give you a quick rundown of the sort of ideas they came up with and the things they said they were going to do. But before that, I suggestions that we have, and we have now got hanging in our sukkah, which is going for gold apples. The idea is basically one of our negatives is that when we've had meetings, when we call people together, we find that it's a very small core of people who come. A fair number on our green group, but they don't always turn up to everything. So we thought perhaps rather than just sending out emails and all the stuff that we usually do to tell them what's going on, our next event, which is going to be a harvest lunch, when we're hoping people will share ideas and actually come up with how we can move forward, could be actually told about in the sukkah. So the idea is simply hanging the sukkah ceiling and people think, well, what's that? And it's inviting people to the date. So the idea is simply that it will make people look at them and wonder what they are, and perhaps it will make them remember better that we're having this harvest lunch, and we can gather lots of people to come up with good ideas. Based on the audit, we're making a list of all the things we still haven't achieved, and see who can suggest ways of getting there. So one side is an apple and the other side is the invitation. So it's very simple, but it's just a different way to invite people. And they're obviously cut out, stuck on card. So a quick thing that I was going to tell you is the different things that people have put on their stickers. They're on their post-its. So many were walking, busing or cycling instead of instantly using their cars. A few with cars had changed to hybrid or fully electric. Some had actually given up their car and was using a car club occasionally. And one had even set up a car club and is offering to help others do this too. Many were using trains and buses for longer journeys. Some were shopping more locally, and some had decided to give up long-haul flights. Others were carbon offsetting where it couldn't be avoided. Some had become vegetarian or vegan, some given up eating as much meat as before, and more people were growing their own vegetables or planting seeds from scratch, growing their own plants or planting trees. Some had stopped buying clothes, and some only bought second-hand clothes in charity shops. Many had stopped using plastic bags from shops and replaced them with fabric ones. And one bought mainly from a zero-energy store. Others bought unused food from a community shop. Many were recycling their paper. One had recycled a carpet via FreeCycle when they wanted to replace it. And one had recycled a fitted kitchen that way. And with energy use, many were now turning out lights when not in use. Some were taking showers instead of baths or shorter showers. Some were putting on warmer clothes rather than turning up the heat. One had reduced their gas and electric usage by 27%. And one member has a much warmer home after increasing their loft insulation from 100 millimeters to 270, which is the correct one. 4 people had solar panels installed to help with all this too. So those were the notes that we got on the eco meter, and people seem to enjoy being able to share that. So that's us.
Thank you so much. We've been having some really excited comments in the chat about your brilliant ideas. Okay then, so the second presenter is Benita Matowska from Brighton and Hove Progressive Synagogue. Thank you very much.
It's absolutely wonderful to be here. So thank you so much, Fiona, for inviting me. After creating the first human, the Holy One who is blessed took them around all the trees of the garden and said to them, "See how lovely and excellent my works are. I've created them all for you. Take care not to spoil and destroy my world, for if you spoil it, there will be no one to repair it after you." And this is something that is so dear to my heart, because this is what we need to do. That's from Kohelet, from Rabbah 7:13. Now, as many of you know, I'm Benita, and I'm a proud member of the Brighton and Hove Progressive Synagogue. I sit on the council with responsibility for environmental action and justice, and I lead the BHPS Green Team. We hold events and grow a green Jewish community across the city. We're proud to be part of Eco-Judaism, and we take particular pride in being awarded the first EcoSynagogue Silver Award in the UK, announced at COP26 and presented at Kew Gardens in June 2022. So our vision is to grow a Jewish community that cares about our environment and each other and takes action for the planet, to work together to build a more connected, caring, sharing, sustainable society and economy. And our aim is to establish BHPS as a hub for all that is green and Jewish. Now, our journey has been inspiring, difficult, motivating, challenging, and extraordinary. And I'm going to spend the next 7 minutes sharing some insights, positive stories, but also the tricky parts of our EcoSynagogue journey to cut carbon for people and the planet. So in the beginning, Bereshit, when I joined the BHPS Council in 2017, the first thing that I did was to carry out an environmental audit. Now, this was in the days before EcoSynagogue was launched, and I was lucky enough then to have the support of our then Rabbi Eli, now Emeritus Rabbi, but I did face challenge from several others. I knew from my own work in the field of sustainability that I needed some kind of baseline to establish what we were already doing so that I could understand what we needed to do to lower our carbon footprint. It wasn't an easy beginning. People were concerned that what I was doing would be expensive. And like Kathy, we are a small shul with also no land, with a very limited budget. But again, I know from my own work that the idea of sustainability as unaffordable and a sunk cost is a myth that I was keen to dispel. So I put together a full cost analysis for us to source only eco-friendly products, from the food cooked for our simchas to the cleaning materials we used, and even the loo roll. I also looked at our waste, single-use plastics and disposables that we used for our events, our recycling efforts, eco-education, and how we practice tikkun olam through our services, our activities, and our communications. I realised that although we were certainly not starting from zero, there was work to be done for us to achieve and be on a solid path to net zero. Some people were sceptical, and I remember some very challenging council meetings where I was literally tearing my hair out. As you can see, that's never quite recovered. But I persisted, and with the birth of EcoSynagogue in February 2018, I had a network of support that legitimised and propelled this work forward. So the next stage, getting going. Yalla, yalla. So the next stage was really all about building that momentum. And I knew that creativity was all important and this needed to be collaborative. So I set up a green team. The lovely Claire Bessel joined and really helped to get things moving. Our events were about inspiring people, giving them a positive experience of sustainability. I mean, who doesn't love a clothes swap? There's nothing like sharing your schmatters and going home with a bag of clothes that have cost you nothing and haven't cost the planet. It was a success. So we began to feel more confident, and we ran green skill shares, eco Shabbats, and during COVID, of course, we went online. Once we were able to meet again in person, we had vegan Chavara Shabbat lunches and Friday night dinners with speakers. And over the last year, the green team, I'm pleased to say, has grown. Looking ahead, we're planning to have one in-synagogue event and one out-in-nature community event per quarter, as well as having an eco element to every festival and celebration that we have in the synagogue. Now, part of our EcoSynagogue work is about building relationships with our local eco community and to celebrate and enjoy the incredible natural resources on our doorstep. As Brighton is a coastal community, we can access full moon swims, beach cleans, boat trips out to our offshore wind farm. And we're now going for gold, like Kathy, and hoping to be a gold standard EcoSynagogue by the next awards. So that's the good stuff. Now for the tricky stuff. So change, especially behaviour change, is difficult. And I want to share a recent part of our journey that hasn't been easy. So as most of you know, the latest report from the International Panel on Climate Change makes a depressing read. We're on track to reach or surpass a 1.5 degree temperature rise before 2040, triggering irreversible and extreme changes to our climate, our habitat, our planet. From multi-metre rises in sea levels, floods, fires and food shortages, the need to decarbonise has never been greater. So at BHPS, we looked at how that might be achieved faster. As many of you know, one of the best ways to lower our carbon footprint is via the food that we eat. For example, by becoming vegan, you can lower your carbon footprint by 73%. Now, of course, this is a journey. And in January this year, we took a decision at Council to become a completely vegetarian synagogue, meaning that as leaders, we would make a commitment to lower our carbon footprint and reduce our negative impact on the planet by ensuring that all food brought into the synagogue, eaten in the synagogue, would be vegetarian. The difference for us in the case of our community meant that no fish, no permitted fish would be allowed. Now, I see a synagogue as a place where we strive to be and do our very best, to care for the world, to make our Tikkun Olam commitments mean something. So going vegetarian meant that the 0.03% of our meals at most per year that we eat in the synagogue would be entirely from low carbon vegetarian foods. Now, we made this announcement and a small but vocal minority in our shul felt differently. They wanted to have the option to eat permitted fish and felt that they hadn't been consulted. Emails were traded, motions were proposed, and we had a very heated AGM in July. Unfortunately for me, in some ways, I was busy up in Leeds, moving my elderly parents into a new, easier place to live. So I missed the whole balagan. But obviously, I was very involved in all of the actions and the communications that followed. Essentially, a few people in our community feel that eating fish is an important part of Jewish identity. And although personally I struggled with that notion, I did find it curious and interesting that not being able to eat fish for 0.03% of our meals per year would generate such broigus. Now, we pride ourselves on being a really kind and inclusive synagogue. And so we discussed this again at Council because we didn't want division in our community. We wanted to bring people together and we wanted to take people on a journey. And we wanted to come up with some kind of compromise that would be a way to enable us to progress on our journey, to be the best we can be, but to give those who struggled with giving up fish for synagogue meals a way of being able to participate in this eco journey. And I'm just going to read to you the communications that we then sent out because you may find it useful. And this is what we said. As a synagogue with progressive values, it's important for us to do our part to contribute positively to protecting our planet and to minimize the impact that human behavior is having on our ecology and on communities around the world. We take our commitment to Tikkun Olam, care of the world, very seriously and strive to be and do the best that we can, both in our actions towards climate change and to the resulting human rights impacts of a high carbon footprint. As a member of EcoSynagogue, we are committed to lowering our carbon footprint and improving our environmental impact. And having a vegetarian food policy is a key part of achieving this. Whilst many synagogue members agree with this policy, there are some who feel strongly that eating fish is an important part of their Jewish identity. The Synagogue Council wants to strive for unity and understanding among our members and friends, and so Council has agreed the following adjustment to the policy. The HPS as an organisation continues to promote vegetarianism, and any food which is supplied by the synagogue will be vegetarian. People who are paying privately for a kiddush or celebration, simcha, can include fish, excluding salmon, and we're excluding salmon due to the extremely negative effects of salmon farming on wild fish stocks and the high death rate in the fish farms. Finally, we ask that food which is brought in for chavura meals remains vegetarian. We hope this decision recognizes the feelings expressed by some members of our community in relation to eating fish, as well as our commitments to Tikkun Olam and our vegetarian policy. We'll be scheduling further discussions on the issues, but please do write to us with your views at any time. Now, this compromise has certainly helped, and the lesson learned for us, and for us all, is that we need to find ways to bring people with us on this journey. Behaviour change is difficult. Even when we understand the need to change, actual change is really tricky. Now, I have to say, it did make me smile when I was asked to read Jonah on Yom Kippur, and Rabbi Gabriel made mention of the fish controversy and how appropriate it was that I was given the mitzvah of telling the story of one of the bigger fish, although technically a mammal. So, Today, I'd like to urge each of us to act for the planet, even though it's not always easy. And yes, there will be sacrifices, though not the kind in the Torah. Let's use this event as an opportunity to ask ourselves, what can we do now? What can we do tonight? What can we do this week to make a difference? Let's all commit here and now to an action for the planet, whether that's to eat a more plant-based diet and help cut emissions through our dietary choices, or to take more sustainable forms of transport. But this crisis will not be solved in silos. It will take all of us. And we can't simply wait for others to take action. We all need to do our bit. We owe it to our children, our communities, and to the future for all people and the planet. Sustainability is everyone's responsibility. And I'd like to leave you with the hope that we can and will do better. Thanks for listening. Toda rabba.
Wow. Thank you so much, Benita. That was just fabulous and inspiring and wonderful. And I want your letter to share in my community. That would be really absolutely brilliant. Okay, so now Benita's inspired us to start thinking about what we might do. There's an opportunity now. We're going to send you into breakout rooms where you'll meet one or two other people from around the country. You'll have a chance, 2 minutes each person to introduce yourself, say your name and where you're from, why you decided to come tonight, and what's inspired you so far. So you get 2 minutes each, decide who's going to go first. If there's just two of you, you get a little bit more time, and we're going to call you back in at the end of the time. The rooms are opening now. See you shortly. Hi, everybody, and welcome back from the breakout rooms. Hope that at least most of you managed to get to meet somebody and introduce yourselves. And our third presenter is Julian Brown from Three Counties Liberal Judaism. I'm very excited to have him here because I want to show that you don't have to have a building or a synagogue to be able to make changes in your communities.
Hi, everybody. So, yes, people seem to wonder, we've just got initials because we've got a very long title. We're Herefordshire, Worcestershire, Gloucestershire, but we also have members in Wales, in Monmouth, in Abergavenny, and far south of Gloucestershire. So very big spread, but we're a small community, I think about 160, including children. So very different from, some of the other presentations and things that I've heard. Because we are such a small community, we don't have our own synagogue building. We are fortunate in having a very positive half-time rabbi, Anna Gerard. So that's a great asset because she's very committed to all kind of environmental ideas. We do have a base in Gloucester, which is a Gloucestershire Deaf Association, who've been very kind to us and have a lovely venue with good facilities, so that works well. And we try very hard to have events and activities and services several times during the year in different parts of the widespread geographical area. So that's kind of a bit how we operate. We set up on this journey in July 2022, and I think that I originally got the idea from visiting Oxford Synagogue sometime before and saw that they were involved in eco-Judaism and thought that seemed a good thing to do. We had a very small team, just 2 adults and 1 teenager. We met monthly on Zoom. So this is really a mini story of how we've sort of developed, really. But it was quite exciting because we were both very committed and interested, and we'd actually met up on an action about the health of the River Wye in Herefordshire. So that was a good kind of bonding thing, really. So we started on the eco journey. I have to say that the first 2 to 2.5 months were difficult, especially for me, just in trying to understand all the technical aspects of how to get registered, how to understand the website, how to understand what the audit was, how to fill it in, all of those things, which may seem quite simple once you've done it, but actually took a little bit of time to get sorted. However, after a couple of months or so, I made contact with Donna Cohen from Central Eco-Judaism, and she was brilliant in helping us move forward and explaining things and giving support. So from that point on, things moved forward quite well. I realized that obviously we had to identify what we'd already been doing and what had already been successful, if you like, because we realized that we had done quite a few things. I would say that initially our strengths seemed to be very much in education, in services in the Cheder, in our fortnightly bulletin and our newsletter. So, for example, we started, as other communities have done, we started an eco corner with eco tips in the fortnightly bulletin, little things that individuals could do to improve their relationship with the environment. We had longer articles in the newsletter, for example, one about LOAF, which stands for Local, Organic, Animal Friendly and Fair Trade Food, and also about shops, what's it, refill shops, all that kind of thing, to try and encourage people to eat more sustainably and more awarely. As other communities have done, we've certainly done things in terms of minimizing our use of plastics, and we're lucky that most of our venues, because we don't have a huge number of people coming, so we can use the sort of crockery from the facility, so that's really good, and we do our own washing up, or we have a machine. So we also had two very successful bar mitzvah projects, in the last couple of two years or so. Both of them, one was about tree planting and one was about, what do you call these eco bottles that you fill up with plastic, that I spent a long time doing. Anyway, we did that. The eco bricks, that's right, we did that. And that was really good, and it was good that we could see there was enthusiasm for these ideas amongst other people. And we also began, we've had a very successful Eco Shabbat service last year, which was at the time of the COP summit, and again getting people more on board. And we've got great plans for this year's Eco Shabbat, with meeting up with a local co-housing community which happens to have a number of Jewish and Israeli members, and the idea is that they're going to come to our Eco Shabbat service, and then we're going to go over to the co-housing project, and they're going to show us about all the eco features and how they operate. So that will be quite exciting, really. Other things we've done, we recently, so we realized one of the areas we needed to develop further was in the engagement with the community and finding out what different people in the community are doing. I was very interested to hear about Oxford's presentation with the Ecometer. But what we've done is we did a survey about gardens, growing produce, to find out how many people in the community were doing that, in what way, how many had allotments or used allotments, and we've set up a contact point for anybody who wants advice in that area. So, and that's the first of, we hope, other kind of similar sorts of surveys. For technical reasons, we didn't get a brilliant response, but we will get better. A lot of this is a learning process, but it's been an exciting journey. One of the other things was it wasn't until quite close to submitting our for our bronze award that we realized we hadn't got an eco policy in place, which had to be approved by the council, and luckily we managed to get that done in time and approved, and we were happy with it, just with a very small change of wording after comments from the council. So we're really glad we got the bronze award, and in fact we are hoping to go for silver within about 6 months. In one way, it's an advantage, the fact that we don't have a synagogue building, so we can't do so much on that carbon footprint front, but obviously we can try and do more in encouraging individual members, and it's been really interesting to hear the presentations so far. But if anyone wants to know more about the first steps and the beginning process, do contact me, as Fiona had said. I'm happy to help. Thank you.
Okay, So thank you so much, Julian. And yeah, as he said, everybody here is willing to share their information. And so if you've got any specific questions for anybody, send them direct messages in the chat and they'll get back to you. So the fourth presenter is Leslie Danzig from Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation, a person close to my heart because I worked for 9 years in Scotland and spent lots of time at Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation.
Okay. My name's Leslie Danzig, and I lead Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation's Green Team. Our team began life just before the pandemic and lockdown in February 2020, and is a subcommittee of the main board of management of Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation. We report back to the board at each of their meetings, and we were awarded EcoSynagogue Silver Award for our audit achievements. Edinburgh Hebrew Congregation is a community of around 125 members, regularly supplemented by friends and visitors. Our shul is in the centre of Edinburgh and was built in 1932, amalgamating 3 separate congregations in the one building. We have a beautiful synagogue seating 500 people, a large community centre with a capacious kitchen, excellent for preparing event meals. And the grounds at the back of the building have much potential. We've got quite a lot of ground. Trees have self-seeded into a small wood in the centre of the garden, but there is room for a planned biblical garden, future raised beds. Presently, we've got compost bins, fruit trees, herbs, and so on. We've got 3 compost bins, one that was purpose-built by one of our members. Cooks are encouraged to gather uncooked vegetable and fruit peelings, etc., to place in the compost bin. And we do have a lot of events and hiring of our premises. By the way, you have to be careful to tear up home compostable hand towels before placing them in the bins to avoid them compacting, and that I'm telling you from experience. We're also refining our kitchen signage to promote the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. To encourage purchasing locally sourced and seasonal ingredients, a weekly list in the Green Matters section of EHC's newsletter, the Shavuon, of Scottish and UK grown food for each month was published. An invitation has also been sent out to members and friends at this harvesting time of year to bring their extra garden produce to freeze in the shul for cooks to use. There's a variety of Scottish grown vegetables in season throughout the year, including mushrooms and cauliflower, broccoli, sprouts, cabbage, kale, leeks, onions, and carrots. Local seasonal fruits include apples, pears, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries. But readers are warned that soft local fruits available out of season often require a lot of energy to grow. Over the last 3 years, the Green Team have prepared vegetarian kiddushim with in-house baked cakes and vegetarian dips, lunches with veggie lasagna, and prepared in-house desserts with recipes that we publish in our Shavuon. Preparing dips, main courses, and baking our own cakes using as much local produce as possible, rather than ordering from the deli in Glasgow or buying in ready-made food, reduces our carbon footprint. Our kiddushim and lunches have coincided with COP26, 27, and this year COP28, and also Tu B'Shvat. We have had speakers at these eco events, but also included a short introduction from the team about the food being offered. Many of EHC initiatives, including Hall Hire, are run by different groups throughout the year, and being Jewish, most involve food. We're working hard to pool our resources to avoid overstocking and duplication of ingredients in the kitchen, ultimately resulting in food waste. Kitchen users are encouraged to check the cupboards for ingredients before purchasing what they need for their own specific recipes. An application has been made to the local council for funding to upgrade the garden, including raised beds, an area with bark chippings, more fruit trees, and the clearing of some self-seeded trees to allow more light for a biblical garden. Our intention is to grow the most commonly used vegetables in the kitchen, for example, onions, leeks, and potatoes, but with the least work to look after as we rely on volunteers visiting the garden to water and look after the plants. The Green Team is also looking to installing a water butt in the garden to use the collected rainwater to water. Our young fruit trees have yet to produce enough fruit to be meaningful. They're about 3 years old. A herb table was built by one of our members and installed last spring. parsley, chives, oregano, and thyme were planted in it, along with globe carrots and nasturtiums. We're still experimenting with which herbs are the most popular, and although nasturtiums are edible, it's not clear if anyone picked the flowers or the leaves to put in their salads. I think we need more education. Horseradish is now growing heartily in a couple of pots, and hopefully will have roots in time for Pesach. The media updates information regularly about food miles, and in February we published a very enlightening article about the carbon footprint of particular items. For example, air transport of all green beans is only 25% of emissions created by cumulative car trips to the supermarket to buy these beans. Now I have an alert. Strawberries from Perthshire, advertised as locally grown, turned out to be grown on coir from Sri Lanka, with seedlings from the Netherlands, fertilizer from North Africa, and packed in boxes from China. It seems the only way to confirm local growth, and even then it's not guaranteed, is to pick your own, grow your own, buy a local veg box, or shop at a local farmer's market. All is not what is written on the box. Another of our initiatives was to encourage our Rabbi, David Rose, to contribute a weekly Green Devar alongside his Devar Torah, published every week in EHC's newsletter. Rabbi Rose is a member of EHC's Green Team and is very environmentally conscious. Every week he teases out the Jewish rationale for looking after the planet according to the Torah portion for that week. For example, Deuteronomy Shov team proscribes wanton destruction of fruit trees, even at a time of war. Rabbi Rose in his Green Devar wrote, if during a time of war we are to protect nature, how much more so in daily life? Parsha Matot Masai in Numbers orders the creation of green belts around cities. Rabbi Rose concluded, thus the Torah anticipated the need for green spaces in our cities and giving a nature home, which we can also benefit from. Bamidbar sets forth the frightening prediction of destruction and exile if the Jews don't observe the Torah. The Rabbi's Green Devar read that week, the Torah specifically connects the desolation of the land with failure to observe the sabbatical year. If because of our mistreatment of the earth it rebels against us, where will we go? We've learned through the Rabbi's Green Devars that as Jews we are tasked with protecting our environment. Even in biblical times, the Torah writers and commentators recognize the need to ensure that nature and the earth is protected. EHC's Green Team has also concentrated its efforts into achievable environmental changes where feasible in our synagogue building. We're working hard to promote recycling and insulation against loss of heat where possible. Articles published in the Green Matters section of the Shavuot and subsequently posted on our foyer notice board inform members what changes can be made at home. Our main challenge is to do with changing hearts and minds. If anyone would find my presentation useful, I can email you a copy, but I realize that it's being recorded. So, but if you wish, please let Fiona Frank know. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Leslie. That was absolutely fantastic. And so good to hear what you're doing in Edinburgh. So our final speaker is Rosalind Copisaro, who I've had a wonderful time working with over the last few months on the Climate Action Group in the Board of Deputies, along with Talia, who some of you will meet later, and Lawrence, who will be here in October. Anyway, over to Rosalind from West London.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Lovely to be with you all. And I should also co-introduce the chair of West London Synagogue's Green Team, Charlotte Axelson, because she's on this call here, should really be making this presentation rather than me. But as I've been a deputy and part of this lovely climate action group, I got to do it. And I want to see if I can split the screen between my little presentation and being able to still see you. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try. I'm just going to give you a tiny bit of context, because you're all going to feel much better about all your activities that you're struggling with when you realize what we've been facing in the background in terms of small is beautiful and we are large. We'll give you a short story of how our green work started with a sort of continuation of activities, where we are to achieve, and a couple of the activities that are significant within that. And then I've just listed a couple of documents which are longer and more detailed that I'm very happy to share with anybody afterwards who'd like to have them. We were established in 1840, and we're in central London, which now means that many of our members live far away from us because the property prices make it unaffordable to be on the doorstep. So how they get into the synagogue is a big challenge. It's pretty large, and does large mean easier? Not necessarily, because we also have, as you see, all these staff and committees and rabbis and 18-member board. So the decision-making to make change happen is one of the two biggest challenges that we face. And I'm just being frank with you. That is what happens when you're large. So it just makes the flexibility just a bit more difficult. And the other big challenge we've got is that our building is Grade 2 listed. It was built in 1870, absolutely beautiful. All welcome to come and visit. It's pretty large, 2,700 square meters total premises, including an independent school. But no land. I'm just thrilled to listen to the Edinburgh story and wish we had a garden. We started trying to make a roof garden, but we don't have external land. So that's the circumstances that we're working within. And we started our green team with just a couple of people in 2019. We completed the eco audit. We were extremely honoured to receive a gold award, and work. We're really pushed by volunteer individual members, not by the synagogue itself. So the impetus for our green work has come from, especially young people have been really inspired, including teenagers and children, really putting the grown-ups on the spot and saying, what are you guys doing about this? I've just put some examples of early work that we did, tree planting expeditions for children, the first steps towards a roof garden, waterside rubbish collection. We were involved in an early reverse tashli together with Rabbi Mark's congregation, who I see is on this call. It's wonderful. And to pick up rubbish from waterside. We had a special design for last year's Sukkah, featuring 3 eco charities that really raised awareness. And including, I should mention, one of the things that we really wanted to do was get the GOG management and leadership and board to feel that this was not just an external project of members doing their thing they were interested in, but something that should be integrated into the inner workings of the synagogue. So we put up, I think, quite a provocative Green Team logo. And we also upgraded our recycling facilities in the building, and we also promoted within our High Holy Day appeal support for an eco charity, which is Leket in Israel, that does some fantastic work recycling food that comes from restaurants and hotels and so this list is a small list of many different things we did, and just responding to Benita's struggles over the vegetarian food, please feel that you're in a friendly group here. You're not the only ones. Our push for that landed up with a rejection, outright rejection. But I think that we will be towards cheaper option for people who choose a vegetarian option, so that it's somewhat incentivized. And also the other thing that I was reminded of in everybody's previous presentations is that difficult changes often require regular votes. So when you think about how the slave trade was finished, or you think about how women were admitted to gentlemen's clubs, or any of these difficult things, that often the vote had to come before the board or the membership over a period of 10 or 20 years, every other year, and the percentage agreeing just got more and more. So I'm on a keep going and persist mode here. Sorry. So we want to really keep going to try to move the motivation, enthusiasm, and commitment to greening our community from the external members to the internal core of the synagogue as much as possible. And in addition, we'll be measuring how much we can reduce our actual carbon footprint. And the third big goal, I think, is to increase member involvement beyond those who are already completely. With those three goals in mind, two of the activities that I wanted to just mention, because I've got supporting documents for them, I can share with you, anybody who wants later, are the fairly detailed set of eco-governance policies, tools, authorizations, HR mechanisms, job descriptions, other things that we created to support the management, the staff, and the tricky way one has to be able to build teams of hybrid teams of volunteers, trustees, staff, paid staff, and board members in a large organization in a streamlined way where people don't get muddled up with each other. So we created those tools, and we're in the process of trying to get them reviewed and approved by the board. But meantime, they can act as a potentially useful wish list for anybody to start with if they're looking for how they want to try and create some frameworks for their synagogue's eco activities. And the second thing we did that I'll just mention here is we applied for a small grant, a technical eco auditor, to do a review of our building, which, as I mentioned, is historic. It's got drafty ancient windows. It's got old boilers, very old boilers. And we've asked him to give us recommendations on the quick wins that we can do ourselves at low cost, on higher cost recommendations, which will then enable us to apply money. And in addition to those things, to give us, through 2 workshops, our members and their families in their own homes, and also the social action beneficiaries we support, who include asylum seekers and homeless people and victims of disasters like Grenfell victims, top tips for how they can go greener and save money at the same time. So that is in process now, that eco audit, and we'll be able to give further updates on that. But to give you a sort of scale of why we think that this can be incredibly useful for anyone who wants to greenify their building, that 5,000 was a requirement to be able to apply for 50,000 in the next round for a feasibility study if we're going to convert part of our heating to a renewable base, for example, or something that has higher capital cost. And then assuming the capital cost is anything between 300,000 and 500,000, which it might well be for our building, the third level of grant will provide up to 150,000 towards that. So we're on the first rung of the ladder here to try to really move towards. And so the grant application includes a lot of things that I think could be useful if anybody wants to apply for a grant from their own local authority, that you could just please feel free to copy and paste anything that you think is useful. We spent some time researching how public sector grant providers think and what they like, so that we put in the right words and we were fortunate to be successful in that. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. That's absolutely fascinating. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move into breakout rooms, where everybody gets to go into a breakout room with one of the presenters, or else with Rabbi Wittenberg, who spoke at the beginning, where there'll be a chance of a longer discussion in a small group of 5 or 6 people, and a chance to ask questions of the presenter in your group and of the other people in your group. There's a facilitator in each group who'll prompt you with some questions, and we'll let you know when it's time to draw to a close. We've randomly assigned you to one of the presenters, but if there's another person that you really, really want to go and speak to, and you really don't want to stay in your room that you're in, then you can either choose your own breakout room and move to another one right at the beginning, or you can come back to the main room and Raoul, our tech assistant, will move you to the group that you want. Right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And please put any comments in the chat, and please fill in our Mentimeter word cloud. There's a link in the chat. Join at menti.com, use the code 155696636, or click on the link in the chat to fill in the beautiful Mentimeter word cloud, and hopefully I'll be able to share that with everybody afterwards about what's inspired you today. So before I hand over for our closing statements, I want to just hand over, I just want to thank people. I would like to thank Andrea and Donna and Rabbi Wittenberg at Eco-Judaism. I'd like to thank the facilitators of the presentations we've just had, Marion and Janet and Andrea and Talia and Charlotte, and our tech person, Raoul Smith. And I'd like to thank all the presenters, of course, Benita and Ros and Kathy and Julian and Leslie. And now...
And Rosalind.
And Rosalind. Thank you. She's not my... Yeah. All the presenters, Benita, Rosalind, Kathy, Julian and Leslie. Does anybody feel they haven't been thanked yet? When I'm calling klezmer keilis, I usually stand in the middle of the room, throw my hat in the air and say a big round of applause for me. So you can do a big round of applause for me. And I'm now able to, I want you all to be filling in the Mentimeter, and I will share the word clouds shortly. And before I do that, I'd like to hand over to Rabbi Mark Goldsmith, who's going to say a few closing words.
Definitely for me, among the closing words is thank you so much to Fiona for what you created tonight. And it's really been beautiful to hear all of this. On behalf of Eco-Judaism, we thank you and the Board of Deputies for enabling this evening to happen. Thank you very much indeed. Some closing words for me. So the temple in Jerusalem was actually opened on Sukkot in some of our synagogues. Indeed, we have a haftarah about the opening ceremonies with King Solomon, because they took place on Sukkot, and why not? Absolutely. It would have been a wonderful, wonderful occasion and a wonderful festival to be part of. And of course, Sukkot is so much part of our celebration of our environment. seeing the joy of our children handling what we harvest actually around our synagogue grounds to build our synagogue sukkah is just so lovely. I was getting the chance to do that earlier. However, things did go a little bit wrong. After a couple of 100 years or so, there were lots of breaches in the temple. There were kind of walls falling down, things like that, and they had to be repaired. King Jehoash made sure that this happened. This was his idea. Second Book of Kings, Malachim, chapter 12. And the trouble is it all went rather wrong. It just didn't happen. The money was collected. It didn't happen properly. Things were kind of getting siphoned off, and he got very upset about it, a little bit like we do about the world around us when the action on climate change just isn't happening as it should do. So Jehoiakim, one of the high priest, came up with a brilliant plan, which is what we're going to do from now on is all contributions for fixing the walls of the temple are going to be put into a sealed box. They'll be properly accounted for when the box is open, and none of this money is going to get siphoned off, and it will actually happen, and the breaches in the temple will get repaired. And it worked. And underneath that comes a Jewish principle, I think, of accountability. One of the things that eco-Judaism is about is let us be accountable for the work that we do on climate change. Among the wonderful presentations tonight, the one where we got to see the eco-meter at Oxford was such a wonderful idea, which is a community accountability as well as the audit accountability that we have. All of us are saying our communities are going to be accountable for the work that we do on climate change. In a way, we're putting the box in the temple into our synagogues and saying, put it all in there and let us know how we have grown in what we are doing. And how we are growing in our accountability for working on climate change and making a difference for future generations, so that the harvest that we can celebrate on Sukkot will continue safely. So I want to wish you all Chag Sameach, and many thanks to everybody who contributed with such wonderful presentations tonight and made Eco-Judaism come alive and the Board of Deputies Climate Action Group work come alive.
Thank you so much. That is absolutely fantastic way to finish. And here are here's your word cloud, ways in which people have been inspired, people's next steps. The link's in the chat if you haven't filled in anything already. Put your final comments in the chat. You can all unmute yourselves and shout out some things that you want to share now if you want.
Just thank you very much.
Really lovely event to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Good luck.
Shana Tova to everyone.
And don't forget to put Thursday, October the 26th in your diaries, because these presentations were inspiring, so they will be next time. Thank you so much, everybody.